Joining us via Zoom from Yola, the Adamawa State capital, is Dr. Agoso Bamaiyi. He is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Doctor, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Of course, it's good to have you. So, Doctor, let's talk about corruption. I mean, it has been a persistent, crisis that's been happening in all over the world, honestly, many countries. But then Nigeria in particular has been battling this for the longest time. So, what is your take on the level of corruption in Nigeria? What would you say the key factors are in contributing, the growth of this particular situation that is disturbing us?
Well, the network is a bit erratic, so I may be coming on and off. Let's say that corruption is the main reason why we have such high levels of poverty and suffering in the country. In other words, if you take away corruption from Nigeria, or if you are able to minimize it, it's really difficult to get rid of it completely. Like you mentioned there's no country in the world where there's no corruption. But some countries have been able to manage it and keep it very low. So if we're able to push down corruption and manage ourselves very well, there's no reason why we should have such high levels of poverty. Poverty in Nigeria is somewhere around 60%, 63% across the country. More than half the population of the country are living in poverty. And it's really because of corruption. I say this because we have the sources to be a first world country. We have the sources. If we had managed ourselves well and have very little corruption, maybe corruption at 2-3%, not the 60, 63, 64% that we have, then we're the first world country. So the difficulties, the problems, and the hardships we have in Nigeria, whereas there are other factors that contribute to it, like tribalism, religious bigotry, etc., etc., the main culprit is corruption. So if we're able to deal with it, Nigeria will be a far, far better place than it is right now.
All right, Doctor, earlier we were talking to our viewers and we were trying to name different type of corruption. So it's always said a problem known or, shared is half solved. So let's backtrack a bit and even understand what corruption is all about. For people, corruption is all about, bribery, extortion kind of thing. But then what other ways, what other things, steps, even though they are lesser than bribery and extortion, are still or can still be named as corruption? Let's understand corruption much better.
Well, corruption is deep. And most of the time, when we talk about corruption in Nigeria, people understand it in terms of giving bribes, taking bribes. That's the main way we understand. But when you use your office to gain personal advantage, undue advantage, that is corruption. So a father, his house, or a mother, his house, can be corrupt if you are employing means that are not just, means that are not fair to have your way. So it's something that is very, very wide. And when we talk about corruption, we have to look at it in the broader sense. Because if talking about fighting it, and we deal only with bribery and corruption, bribery and taking of bribes, then we will not successfully fight it. So when I use my position, when I use my influence to gain on advantage, words like one-upmanship or hornswoggle, that's another word you can use to describe. So use your numbers, maybe as a group, to suppress others. You use your office, you use your position, whatever it is that you use to gain due advantage and to, make the system work you unduly, to circumscribe the system, and so you have an undue advantage. That's corruption in itself. So it's not just about money, by giving or taking money. It could be about taking a file, hiding the file, the processes that are necessary to be carried through conclusion, so that the contractor or whoever it is that is engaging with that office can have what due to them. The messenger that hides the file or the clerk, that is a corrupt practice. You have traffic rules, and you're not obeying traffic rules simply because you are some senior government official, and so you're not following traffic rules. You know that when the police they will discover you are a high-ranking government official and nothing will happen to you. That is corruption. Use your position to corrupt our girls, people in office, people in positions, misleading young girls, putting them in a situation where they give their bodies so they can gain marks, maybe in the university or school, so they can gain a job. That is also corruption. Somebody is qualified and they're eminently qualified for it, but you not give to them. You say, you have to see me in a hotel. A man who is in a position saying to a girl who's looking for a job, you have to see me in the hotel, and then it's yours. That also is corruption. So it's whatever situation where you try to gain undue advantage and have your unduly, that corruption.
That is knowledge 101, Doctor. I would say you simplified it to an average Nigerian. Now, basically, everyone will understand that one way or another, there must be something you're doing to take advantage of your power. Marketers know that you are also doing, some level of corruption, and can be, hold accountable for that. But Doctor, let's talk about how the practice of corruption can impact in the life of every average citizen of the country.
Well, less than the Commissioner for Health, and monies are set aside to get medicines and equipment and put in order our primary healthcare centers all across the state, secondary healthcare centers, and I connive with the contractors, with other government officials. We get maybe expired drugs at lower prices so we can keep the difference, or not even buy the drugs at all. We don't get the treatments at all, and things like that. So a citizen is brought to the hospital, and the medicines that are used to treat him are expired or fake drugs, and he dies. Now that's a consequence of corruption. So people go to the hospital, don't get the treatment that is due to them. Our children are not getting the education that will give them the necessary skill set to be functional, to be productive, to be responsible citizens. And our security is not taken care of because huge money set aside for security is set aside into private pockets. People in power are setting that aside, so we're not in the equipment that our police need, the civil defense, the army, etc. So it's a whole spectrum of difficulties that we face as a country as a result of corruption. It's all over the place.
Indeed, Doctor.
Roads that should be in shape and in good condition are not in shape. They are not in good condition. The people die as a result of accidents. Those roads are victims of corruption. So you can see that it's a huge problem that corruption has brought upon us as a country. As a matter of fact, the insurgency in the country, the banditry in the country, huge harder farmer conflict in the country the various community conflicts that we have around the country can all be traced one way or the other back to corrupt practices. Things that should be done have not been done because somebody wants to make himself rich, or have been done but not properly done because somebody wants to become rich, and then you this huge consequence.
Yeah, doctor, let's capitalize on that one. Doctor, are you with us? Let's capitalize on what you just made mention of. I mean, corruption has been there since ever. And even with all of the anti-graft agencies being put together in place in Nigeria in order to eradicate it, it's still stretching, it's still growing. So what are the main obstacles, hindering the fight against corruption in Nigeria?
The reason why it is still growing with all the measures that government has taken and is taking is because it has become endemic. It's right from the individual level to the family level to the community level, institutional level, up to the state level and the national level. You find corruption everywhere. It's endemic. It's all across board. And therefore, choosing and picking fights against corruption is not going to solve it. It's got to be an all-out war. And the other thing is that it would not just be a war against corrupt practices itself. There has to be an attitudinal war that has to be fought. We have to change attitudes in Nigeria, because we have monetized value in Nigeria. We no longer respect honesty. We no longer respect truthfulness. We no longer respect hard work. All it takes make money. How you make the money doesn't matter. You get a chieftaincy title from your chief in your local or your state. As a matter of fact, you get a number of chieftaincy titles across the country. You get lots of awards, honorary doctorate degrees, simply because you've made money. Nobody is asking, how did he make the money? He did the money through juju or through manipulating the office he occupied. Nobody is asking. See, it is in Nigeria people become hugely rich, not through productivity, not because they have companies and are producing goods and services people are buying, but simply because they occupy offices. And we worship them in religious centers. We honored in the community. We honored everywhere. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter the discoveries you have through your research as a professor or a researcher, nobody sees you as anything. And a young boy who you lectured and trained, who got a job, occupied at what they call juice office, suddenly becomes rich, and he's getting all the awards and everything above you that trained him, that brought him up, that have done discoveries that are helping the nation. But simply because you have money, simply because you do not have money, in meetings you will raise your hand, you have a valid point, nobody is asking you to talk, they won't point you to talk. Even when they point to you to say something or talking, they say it's enough. But somebody who has money can talk and talk and talk usually. Nobody stops him.
So, Doctor, basically, we are enabling corruption, is what you're saying. We are the one enabling it in the country.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Right. We enable corruption.
Let's talk about how to deal with this issue happening. I mean, you are a public affairs analyst, so you have some of the key strategies that say other countries that were able to get rid of corruption from their own system. The key strategies they put in place. So, what are these key strategies that you think Nigeria should emulate that would actually help in effectively fighting against corruption?
In the case of Nigeria, it has to be an all-out war. When I say that, I mean that at the individual level, I have got to say to myself that I am not going to use my office personal advantage. And we've got to do that at the individual level. At the family level, parents got to insist that their children go to education without paying for their children to results. I mean, when my daughter several years ago was to write JAM, somebody approached me and told me about a mirror center. I said, what is that? That they give them leads ahead of time so that your child will get all the points that they need. I said no. I insisted my daughter would write JAM at the normal. We use her head so that I can celebrate her if she passes it. I know it's her doing. Not I paid money for her to get results that does not deserve. So parents work on that. Train your children. Be a good example to them. And then at community level, communities should be strong enough to deal with cases of corruption. In Japan, if you are a thief, if you are corrupt, the community shuns you. There are communal systems that deal with corruption. So everybody in Japan is working honestly to become rich. Then we go to the institutional level. It's a fight not just of the executive. The legislature should not fight it. There should be laws in place that makes it difficult to be corrupt when you occupy office, and make it easy to grow and succeed if you work honestly. And then, of course, the fight that the executive is fighting through ICPC, EFCC.
All right, Doctor, quickly, let's hear from you about the speech of the chairman of the EFCC, Ola Olukoyede, where he made mention that he plans on fighting corruption. Do you think that is something that can be achieved? Dr. Bamaiyi, are you with us? Okay, I think we lost Dr. Bamaiyi. I think the network.
Until we start doing that, we're going to have results.
Okay, can you just go back and answer that question again, Doctor? We lost you for a minute.
What I'm saying here is that the legislature would have to fight corruption by putting in place laws in the various MDAs that makes it difficult to be corrupt.
Okay.
And makes it easy for you to succeed when you are honest, truthful.
Yes, I made reference to the chairman of the EFCC, Ola Olukoyede, where he came out to talk about making promises, yes, about him fighting corruption. So do you think that is something that can be achieved? It's something that you think he can achieve?
Yeah, it's as a matter of fact, it's the fulcrum of the corruption war. If we get to a point where there are no sacred cows, that no matter how big you are, no matter how influential you are, no matter how well positioned you are, if you are corrupt, you are prosecuted to the logical conclusion. An example is made out of it. Until we start making example out of these big shots, we're not going to succeed in our fight against corruption. So I like his commitment that there would be no sacred cows. I am praying for him. I am hoping that he means it and that he will carry it out. As soon as Nigeria discovers that there are no sacred cows, we will not behave it. Until that happens, corruption will continue to have a free day in Nigeria.
So recently, youths have been coming out to, make efforts to expose corruption through the social media, and we've seen some battles also happening with the USA, even though it's alleged that they are fighting some social media platform because of propagandas. That's according to them. But then youth have been using these opportunities where they can come out and make some accusations and point out fingers at people. So do you think social media would help in exposing corruption, or is it something that should be at least should be managed by the government?
No, the government should not control social media. I know that the social media is toxic. It's very, very toxic. There are instances here in Nigeria and also around the world where social media has exposed corruption and it ended up in good result. So I would say this to the young people. continue to be concerned about the sanity of Nigeria. And so when you see something, say something. And one of the media that it is better if you can write a petition, if you can write a petition to any of the pieces of EFCC or IPPC or the police, that one is better. So investigate it. Because if you go through the social media, there is a tendency to blanketly declare that it's and it will cause a lot of troubles for you. So write a petition to the offices of the anti-corruption agencies in the country. Organize yourselves as young people, stand as groups. When you fight in a group, if you stand alone, they will silence groups and fight this as groups. Have lawyers as your advisors and have senior people who are fighting corruption as your patrons. So organize.
Doctor, earlier you made mention, you were pointing out, everybody's role in combating corruption, saying it's not just a one-man role. Talking about, you also made mention of a bill should be passed, a law should be put in place for MDAs to make decisions on, at least to be able to curtail internal corruption happening in the different MDAs. But then coming back to the judiciary, they are also one of the strong pillar that should be fighting corruption. So what is your take on our judicial system so far in the fight against corruption?
The judiciary is very important, very, very important. So they themselves should avoid a situation where a case is brought to them and they take money to thwart the case. So we need to have a judiciary that is above board, that will decide on cases based on the merits or demerits of those cases. A judiciary that is truly blind. They say justice, Lady Justice blind. Unfortunately, we do have a judiciary, at least in some, and so the personality of the people involved influences the outcome of the cases. We should get to a point where we are individually weighed the same before the law, that the law is blind, the judiciary, the Lady Justice the sea. And so decisions are taken based on the position or the size or the influence of the person that is involved. Now, when we get that, and that cases are disposed quickly, and that our lawyers stop using injunctions and counter injunctions and whatever these things are called as tactics to delay the case, to drag the case, that we're able to do these cases quickly, cleanly, arrive at a conclusion and sentence is passed, so that the ordinary Nigerian sees justice being done. Once we get to that point, then again, it will add to the quick flow towards a society where we have less and less corruption, not the huge corruption that we have right now. So yeah, the judiciary is very, very.
The president came with a strong mandate saying that his administration is here to fight corruption, even creating means for KPI to make sure he hold his ministers accountable, his cabinet in general accountable, saying if you're not doing the job right, then of course we are going to get rid of you. You're going to leave that particular position. But still, so far, there are a lot of ministers that Nigerians do not even really know, are not really feeling the impact of them being occupying that particular seat so far. So would you say that you see progress in the way this administration is managing, the fight against corruption?
Well, I see movement. There is movement, but progress, not. I see movement. I have said this about President Tinubu, and let me say again, he's present. He's present, doesn't seem to be absent, like the former president, who from time to time will tell you, I don't know about this. A serious national issue, he would say to you, nobody knows. I mean, nobody told him. Tinubu is present, appears to be hands-on. And to that extent, I am encouraged that when he says his ministers will be put on their heels to perform, I want to believe him. But so far, it's words and activities, but no serious movement. So let's hope that as we go forward, we will see movement in carrying out those words that he spoke. That we will see a real fight against corruption, especially using office for personal gain. We've seen him trim the number of people he travels with. We've also seen him control the traveling that the ministers do on public costs. And so we're hoping that he will do more of this thing, so that the ministers know that they are in their positions to serve, not to enrich themselves. Unfortunately, majority of public servants see public service as a means of enriching themselves. I remember a situation where a mother to her son, who came to a position, after congratulating him, and she said to him, "It is now our turn to be rich." Unfortunately, that's the way we see public office. It's like our turn, to cut the public cake and be rich. But in countries where you have holiness and rule of law and order and due process, people come into office to actually serve. Of course, you have a good salary, you have good allowances and all that. But in Nigeria, we're not satisfied with that. We want to go beyond it. We want to become super rich. That after our tenure of 4 years, we own hotels, we own estates, we own all kinds of things, and unfortunately, we Nigerians and ordinary Nigerians continue to suffer in the midst of plenty. So my hope is that the president will go on and keep his words, and we will begin to see real movement.
Indeed. Doctor, speaking quickly on ordinary Nigerians and what they are feeling in the midst of, the prevalence of corruption, what message of hope do you have for Nigerians, who are discouraged by this corruption that is really eating deep, that has really eaten deep into our system?
Let me say to Nigerians, and when I talk to Nigerians, I also talk to myself, I talk to my children, and I talk to my friends and relations, because we are in this together. We're feeling the heat from every side. Let me say that Nigeria is rich. We're rich and we're not bankrupt, at least not yet. Now that's good news. And let's also say that corruption can be fought, it can be defeated. That is no good news. So let's not give up hope. Nobody should give up hope. Remain hopeful, should remain confident, we continue to push and work hard for a fair, just society. The thing I'd like to say is what I said earlier to the young people. We have to organize. Let's organize ourselves in various groups, strong groups that will help the EFCC, ICPC, and the police fight corruption. Let's not go at it individually. It's easy to take you out as an individual. We go against it as groups, well-organized groups. Then we have a voice. It will be difficult to take out, and then we will get our country. We have to get our country back.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Bamaiyi. Agoso, appreciate you joining us via Zoom, even though the network has been fluctuating a bit, but we appreciate you joining us from Yola this morning to dissect, the focus, of course, on fighting fighting corruption rather in Nigeria. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Of course. And with that, of course, we have come to the end of this episode.